Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has had this surah named Al-Ihlas. Ihlas is that a servant performs his actions, his intentions and all his inclinations purely for the pleasure of Allah. Ihlas is the act performed solely for Allah without seeking any benefit, free of ostentation and without expectation. However, if one pays attention, in the surah there is no expression such as be sincere or do not mix ostentation into your deeds. Rather, this haqiqat is stated directly. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. So, what is the secret of this and why has this surah been named Al-Ihlas? The secret is that a person who understands and comprehends these truths attains the secret of Tevhid. This realized understanding leads him to a submission to Allah with absolute faith, and that submission leads him to absolute trust in Allah, thus yielding true Ihlas. Now, among His immense manifestations, Allah has two immense modes of action, one being Wahidiyya and the other being Ahadiyya. Wahidiyya is the manifestation and governance of Allah with all His names, attributes and shu'unat throughout the entire universal realm. Although it is a very weak analogy when compared to Allah, of course, it resembles how the illumination of the sun manifests upon the planets, bringing about daytime. Ahadiyya, on the other hand, is that most of Allah's names, attributes and shu'unat manifest and become concentrated in a single being, bringing it under His governance and dominion. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ indicates the secret of Ahadiyya, meaning you are a mirror, and within you the one who governs, manifests and is seen with all His names, attributes and the divine qualities of His essence that underlie and drive His attributes is none but Allah. Allahu Samad. There is also the seal of Samadiyya. It is to make the külli submit to Cüzi, meaning making the universal submit to the particular and to place it in its service. That is, to bring the sphere of Wahidiyya, the universal domain, the total cosmic realm, into the submission to the sphere of Ahadiyya, to the sphere of oneness, rendering the universal subject to the particular. Just as an entire tree with all its leaves, branches, roots, bark, trunk, flowers, and all its parts turns toward and becomes subservient to its fruit. As Samad, the one upon whom all depend, the absolute, self-sufficient one. It is connected to the seal of Samadiyya. Samad is the one who gives without expecting anything in return. For one to be Samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad. That is, one must neither beget nor be born. What does this actually mean? That from the attributes of creation like need, deficiency, incapacity and deprivation, one must be eternally free, transcendent and exalted in order to be Samad. The created cannot be Samad, because at the same time, one must necessarily be Basir, meaning one who does not see all creation in all their states cannot be Samad to anything. Likewise, one must necessarily be Sami, hearing all the sounds of all creation, both physical and spiritual, the most hidden and the most manifest. Also, a being that does not govern all creation and does not exercise dominion over all creatures cannot be Samad to a single being, to a single particular either. That is, unless one governs the universal as it governs the particular, one cannot be Samed. The human is Cüzi, the particular, whereas all these realms and the universe are Külli, the comprehensive whole. One who is not sovereign over the root of the tree, its trunk, its leaves, its flowers, and its bark, cannot be sovereign over its fruit, cannot be its true governor, nor can come to its aid. A being that does not bring all realms under order and regulation, governing them through unified acts and laws, cannot govern a single being, a human, a bird, an animal, whatever that single being is. And just as it cannot be its true governor, it cannot be Samed to it either. And one must be Qayyum, the self-subsisting, the sustainer of all, the one who continually holds the existence. As one must be Qayyum over the particular, one must also be Qayyum over the universal. In order to be Samed. One who is not Qayyum cannot be Samed. Since one who is not Qayyum is dependent on another. And that which exists through the existence of another cannot be Qayyum. Nor can it be Samed. And one must be Alim, knowing all things with eternal knowledge. It must know the needs of all creation, their states, how to come to their aid, and all their affairs. Just as it knows the most subtle states of the Cüzi, the particular, it must also know the most subtle states of the külli, the universal. It must govern them all by arranging, balancing, and giving order in order to be Samed. One who does not possess these attributes cannot be Samed. And one must be Qadir. Its power must suffice for all things, and that power must be eternal and essential. Incapacity must never befall it. Allah is al-Qadir al-Mutlaq. There is no limit to His power, for His power is of His essence, and since it is of His essence, there are no degrees in Allah's power. For Him, Jalla Jalaluhu, there is no difference between creating a single particle and creating an entire universe. To one He says kun, and to the other He says kun. He says kun to all. His saying be to a single particle is the same as his saying be to a single universe or to külli universes. Just as a commander setting a soldier running by saying march, so it is with an entire army set running with that same command march. He says march to one soldier and the soldier runs. He gives the same command to an army and the army runs. Because the power of Allah is of His essence, it is eternal and without end. At the same time, only the one who is free from and exalted above the attributes of creation can be Samad. One who has an equal, a likeness or a counterpart, that is one who is not Samad, cannot be Ilah, and one who is not Ilah cannot be Samad, for independence and absolute singularity are among the most necessary realities of uluhiyya. And for one to be Rabb over the Cüzi, the particular, one must also be Rabb over the universal, the külli. One who cannot subdue the universal cannot come to the aid of the particular and be Samad. One who has an equal or a likeness is created, and one who is described with the attributes of creation cannot be Samad. For incapacity, deprivation and gradation, which are the very attributes of creation, would come into play. Thus, Allah takes the Cüzi, the particular, and binds it to the universal, to külli, that is, the names and attributes of Allah being gathered in a particular and manifesting therein is ahadiyya, and His governing and manifesting throughout all the realms with those same names and attributes is wahidiyya. Therefore, one who does not possess wahidiyya cannot be samad to ahadiyya. So, the one who is a samad, meaning the one who is self-sufficient and needed by all existence, must be al-ma'budul mutlaq, and al-hakimul mutlaq, and al-malikul mutlaq, and so on. So, one who is not Malik cannot be Samad. For you to truly host a guest in your home, you must own everything in that house, so that you may make it subservient to your guest. Without ownership, if you are not the Malik and the Hakim of that house, you cannot truly honor and favor your guests, nor can you meet their needs. Just like this, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is Rabb over the entire universal realm, and thus He is Rabb over the human as well. He is Ilah over all the realms, and thus He is Ilah over the human as well. One who is not Ilah over all the realms, over the universal, over the külli, cannot be Ilah over the particular, over the Cüzi. And one who is not Ma'bud over the universal cannot be Ma'bud over the particular either. From this, understand how describing Jesus alayhi salam as the Son of Allah, astaghfirullah, is not only beyond falsehood, but how grave an offense it is against Tevhid and the truth, and how severe a wrong and transgression it entails. To elevate the created to the station of the creator to the station of Samed means to lower the creator to the station of the created, astaghfirullah. That is, to ascribe the attributes of uluhiyya to the created, is to infringe upon the rights of Allah, His honor and His majesty, and it is to imply deficiency in His power, astaghfirullah, that is to show disrespect and to transgress against Him. While the sun has manifested in the mirrors with all its attributes, should the manifestation in a single mirror then turn toward other mirrors, in which the sun is merely reflected? Or should it turn only to the sun itself? Now say this: is it Allah who is seen through you, or Jesus alayhi salam? Is it Allah who is seen through you, or Buddha or Zeus? You are a mirror. Who is it that appears through you? Whom do you show, and to whom do you turn? While by your very creation you show Allah as apparent as the sun, are you seeking candles as your ilah? While the sun manifests in you, do you turn to candles in worship? Here it is, an absolute and manifest truth. One who cannot affirm and acknowledge Allah's oneness and dominion in their own body and in the universe can never accept Allah's governance within their own soul truly. For that reason, Qul huwallahu ahad points to the soul together with the body through its manifestation, and Wahidiyya, which is the manifestation of divine unity across all existence, binds it to the other. The particular and the universal unite. The whole of existence becomes a single body, a single being with you. This, in turn, leads to the secret of İyyâke na'budu ve İyyâke nesta'in and elevates the human to the station of Elhamdülillahi Rabbil âlemin. Thus, unless these truths are instilled in people in this manner, and unless Surah Al-Ihlas is affirmed, acknowledged, and firmly established with these realities, it is never truly possible to speak of Ihlas in its real sense. Surah Al-Ihlas advocates these immense truths of Tevhid, that is the cause of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Yes, in La ilaha illallah there is Tevhid of Uluhiyya and Ma'budiyya. We indicate a very strong proof of this station as follows. Upon the face of this universe, and especially upon the page of the earth, a most orderly activity is observed, and an immensely wise halaqiyya is witnessed, and an immensely orderly fatahiyya is witnessed with ayn al-yaqeen, and we observe an immensely compassionate, generous and merciful wahhabiyya and ihsanat. Therefore, necessarily, this state and this manner prove and make perceived the necessary existence, wujub al-wujud, and oneness of a fa'al, khallaq, fattah, and wahhab, possessor of infinite majesty and grandeur. Yes, the continual passing away and fading in beings and their ever renewal show that existence consists of the manifestations and subtle reflections of the sacred names of Asani al-Qadir, the shadows of the nur of his names and the expressions of his acts. They are the pages and inscriptions of the pen of divine decree and power, and the mirrors of the beauty of his perfection. to the supreme truth and to the highest degree of Tevhid, the owner of this universe points through all the sacred books and scriptures he has sent, and likewise all the people of truth and the exalted ones of humankind also point to that same degree of Tevhid through their investigations and unveilings. And the universe itself, together with its own incapacity and deprivation, by the testimony of the perpetual miracles of art manifested in it, and the marvels of power and the treasures of abundance, also points to that same degree of Tevhid. Therefore, the eternal witness through all his books and scriptures, and the people of witnessing through all their investigations and unveilings, and the realm of witnessing through all its orderly states and the wise shu'unat operating within it, all of them together unanimously agree upon that degree of Tevhid. So, one who does not accept the Wahid Ahad will either have to accept numberless gods, or like a foolish sophist, deny both himself and the existence of the entire universe. In many places, we have established with decisive proofs that the most essential quality of sovereignty is independence and singularity. Indeed, even the weak shadow of sovereignty in powerless humans fiercely rejects the interference of others in order to preserve its independence. And does not allow anyone else to interfere in its function. For example, many kings, out of this dignity of rejecting interference, have eliminated even their own families. Thus, it is understood that the most essential quality of true sovereignty and an inseparable necessity and constant requirement of it is independence, singularity, and the rejection of the interference of anything else. Because of this most fundamental quality, the divine sovereignty at the level of absolute lordship rejects with utmost severity shirk, partnership, and interference of others. And for this reason, the Kur'an-ı also proclaims Tawhid with great intensity, emphasis, and repeated insistence, and rejects shirk and partnership with tremendous warnings. Thus, just as the divine sovereignty within lordship necessarily and decisively entails Tawhid and Wahda and indicates an exceedingly powerful cause and a most compelling necessity, so too the utmost perfection and the most complete order and harmony observed upon the face of the universe, from the totality of the cosmos, from stars down to plants, animals, minerals, and to particulars, individuals, and even the smallest particles, stand as an impartial witness and manifest proof that admits no doubt of that unity, that oneness. For if there were any interference of anything else, then this most delicate order, arrangement, and balance of the universe would surely be disturbed, and signs of disorder would appear. With the mystery of the verse, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَا فَسَدَتَا. If there had been within the heavens and the earth gods besides Allah, they both would surely have been corrupted. This wondrous and perfect order of the universe would have fallen into confusion and corruption. However, with the verse فَرْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُطُورٍ. So return to your vision. Do you see any flaw or rupture? Since no trace of defect, deficiency, or disorder is observed in any respect, from particles to planets, from the lowest realm to the arsh, it becomes manifest with utmost clarity that this order of the universe, this harmony of creation, and this balance of existence display the supreme manifestation of the name Al-Fard, thereby bearing witness to the divine unity and oneness. Moreover, with the mystery of the manifestation of Ahadiyya, the absolute and indivisible oneness of Allah, by which His unity is reflected in every single being, Even the smallest living being, since it is in the nature of a miniature sample of the universe and a small index of it, can only be owned and sustained by the one who holds the entire universe within his grasp of dominion. And since a seed in terms of creation is not lesser than a tree, and a tree is in the nature of a small universe, and every living being is likewise in the nature of a small universe and a small realm, the manifestation of the mystery of ahadiyya brings association and partnership to the degree of impossibility. This universe, with that mystery of ahadiyya, is not only a whole that does not accept division, fragmentation, but also by its very nature, since its division, fragmentation, or partnership are impossible, and since it possesses the ruling of a universal, a comprehensive, all-encompassing whole that does not admit multiple, hence, every part within it is in the nature of a particular, a Cüzi, a singular instance, and an individual, a distinct being. And since this whole is also in the nature of a universal, there remains no possibility for partnership in any respect. So, the supreme manifestation of the name al-Fard, the absolutely one with no partner or equal, proves the reality of divine unity, the truth of Tevhid through the mystery of ahadiyya at the level of self-evident certainty. Yes, since the kinds and categories of the universe are interwoven with one another and interlocked, and since the function of each looks to the whole, they render the universe, in respect of rububiyyah and ijad, into a whole that does not accept division, fragmentation. Likewise, the all-encompassing divine acts operating in the universe also appear simultaneously within one another by way of interpenetration. That is, for example, within the act of giving life, at the same time the acts of sustenance and provision are observed. And within those acts of nourishing and reviving, at the same time the acts of ordering and equipping the bodies of those living beings are observed. And within those acts of nourishing, giving life, ordering and equipping, at the same time, the acts of giving form, nurturing, and governing are realized. And thus, by virtue of such muhit, encompassing and universal divine acts being interwoven within one another and intertwined, and by virtue of their intermingling like the seven colors within light and their unification, and by virtue of each of those acts in its very nature encompassing and extending over most beings within a unity and wahda, and since they are wahdani acts, it necessitates that their doer be a single essence, and that each of them prevails over the entire universe, and that they unite with other acts in a mutually assisting, in a cooperative manner. Which means the universe is such a whole, such a totality, such a kull that to be a Rabb over a single part, a single juz, can only be through being Rabb over the entire whole. And it is such a universal whole, such an all-encompassing totality, such a kulli that to make one's divine governance accepted by every single part that takes on the role of an individual, a singular being, can only be by subjugating the entire universal whole together. since the absolute oneness belonging to the Rabb and divine unity are the basis and foundation of all perfections, and since they are the source and origin of the wisdoms and purposes in the creation of the universe, they are also the source and the sole remedy for the fulfillment of the demands and desires of conscious and rational beings, humankind to begin with. If the absolute oneness of Allah did not exist, all the demands and desires of humankind would be extinguished, and the outcomes of the creation of the universe would come to nothing, and it would be the cause of the disappearance of the perfections that are existent and certain. For example, within the human being, there exists an extremely intense, unshakable, and love-like desire for immortality. And in order to fulfill that demand, that longing for eternity can only be realized by one who holds the entire universe within his grasp through the mystery of Fardiyya. One who can with ease close the world and open the Ahira, just as one easily closes one house and opens another. And like this desire, the thousands of human desires which extend to eternity and spread across the universe are bound to the mystery of divine oneness and the reality of Tevhid. If the absolute oneness of Allah did not exist, they too would not exist and would remain without result. And unless there is Zat al-Fard, who through Wahda exercises dominion over the entire universe all at once, those demands cannot be fulfilled. Even if, astaghfirullah, hypothetically they were to be fulfilled, they would be extremely deficient. And it is for this great mystery that the Kur'an-ı Beyan teaches Tevhid and Fardiyya, the absolute oneness, with frequent repetition, with powerful fervor, and with a profound spiritual sweetness. Likewise, the Anbiya, the Asfiya, and Awliya find their greatest joy and happiness in the verse of Tawheed, La ilaha illahu. So, just as the Kur'an-ı Azimüşşan has stamped these truths with the greatest degree of confirmation, so too the entire universe in the most magnificent manner advocates these truths of Tevhid, the truths of divine unity and oneness. In this way, we have presented a greatly comprehensive tafsir of even 1,000th of the truths found in the Risala and Nur. What we presented here as tafsir is that the ayat-ı, the creational verses themselves explain, unfold, and articulate the ayat-ı. So, it is not interpretation. For a person to call these truths interpretation would lead to the denial of the ayat-ı, and if a sign is proven and explained through another creational sign, yet calling this interpretation is a betrayal of the Quran. Just as the verses of the Quran are not called interpretation, to call the cosmic signs of Allah and the manifestations of His names, attributes, and divine acts that appear upon them interpretation is to oppose Surah Al-İhlas and to attack the divine attributes of uluhiyya and rububiyya. It is like betraying the meaning within a seed. One who upholds the claim of the seed's material structure while denying the meaning within it and calling it interpretation has betrayed the tree in all its aspects. Thus, such person has deified the self and has opposed the cause of Allah.